and welcome to the Press Box. I'm Vanessa Johnson, and for the next 30 minutes, I'll be your host. With me are Ty Reynolds and Jeff Richardson sitting in for Jay Martz. How you guys doing?
Glad to be here.
It's fine.
That's good. Okay, we're going to first start and talk about this college football situation. Who do you think deserves the shot for the title?
Well, guys, personally, I like the undefeated teams here. I think Florida State had their chance, and Notre Dame proved that they were vulnerable at home. Yeah. I still don't think Florida State should be number 2 in the country. I think Nebraska and West Virginia should be the teams. And certainly I would expect West Virginia, in my opinion, to leapfrog Florida State if they stay undefeated and go over there to Chestnut Hill Friday and beat Boston College on their campus. I just think that they deserve a first chance before Florida State gets a second chance.
What do you think?
All right, Ty, I'm going to sort of take the other side of the argument. Right. A lot of people hold the opinion that Notre Dame and Florida State are the two best teams in the country. So for some reason they want to see these two teams play each other again. However, we've talked a little bit about that. I disagree. I don't think we ought to see a rematch, and I'm going to have to agree and go with Nebraska and West Virginia. They're undefeated. Let them play for the national title. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Well, if Florida State was the best team, then they should have beaten Notre Dame. They had a chance to prove it and prove it on the field. I don't think they did it. And so you need, before you give them second and third opportunities, you need to let the undefeated teams that have gone out there and done their talking on the field have their shot at it.
I think Florida State should be up there between 1 and 2 still. But what about Auburn?
Go ahead, Jeff.
All right, we talked a little bit about Auburn last week. They had a great season, 11-0. You can't say much against them except the fact that they cheated to get there. I mean, they're on probation. I disagree with them being ranked in the poll at all. I don't think if you break the rules, they're on probation in football, basketball, and tennis. If you break the rules, you shouldn't be allowed to compete with other teams like they have.
I agree with that. I mean, that, to me, puts a real bad taste in my mouth to see Auburn that high because of exactly that, the penalties, and you need to pay the price for that.
And I want to go ahead and point out, I think we have a phone call coming in, but they've still got Pat Dye on the payroll over there.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me one bit.
So, no. How bad have these penalties hurt them? Here they are 11-0. Everybody's talking sweet about them, being a great football team. Don't like it.
I don't like it either. I really don't like seeing them in the Coalition Bowl. It gives them, their players, and the writers, that puts them in a poll up there where they judge the bowls, and I don't agree with it. I don't like it at all.
Well, they won't be in number 1 or 2 anyway, and if they were, then they wouldn't get a chance.
I don't like them being considered.
It could still conceivably work out that they might jump into the number 1 slot before it's all over. After the bowls are played, we've still got some very important ball games this weekend that could have an impact on the polls. And getting back to Florida State, you won't get any argument as far as they might be the best football team in America on paper. But, Ty, you said it a couple of minutes ago. They blew their chance. Why give them another one?
Right. Not only that, before you count your chickens before they hatch, they got to go down there to Florida Field.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough assignment for them this weekend. Spurrier's tough in the swamp. We might want to talk a little bit about that game here.
Okay. What do you think is going to happen? What are the keys to that game?
All right, I think the keys are Florida State's defense being able to put a stop to Eric Rett, and obviously Terry Dean's been a very hot quarterback lately too, so they're going to move the ball on offense. On the other side, Florida's defense is pretty suspect, and I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring ball game.
I think it is going to be high-scoring, and I think that's the key is Florida's defense. I think they're going to have to change some things, do some things differently to give Charlie Ward some looks he hasn't seen before. I also think it's a situation where Zook needs to save his job. Steve Spurrier isn't a guy who clowns around. If you sit there and cost him football games, and especially a big game like this one at home, he won't fool around. He'll fire you. So it's a big game for Zook as well.
This is true. But I don't think that Florida's going to be able to stop Florida State's offense.
Well, if they do, well, first of all, a lot of people didn't think Notre Dame could stop them either. But Lou Holtz found out a way and beat them. But then, on the other hand, Zook is not Lou Holtz, and Steve Spurrier is basically an offensive coach. He lets his assistants handle his defense. He basically handles his quarterbacks and his offense. So he's really going to have to depend on some of his other people that work for him to really help him get the job done there.
It's going to be a good game, a lot of points scored there. What about Georgia and Georgia Tech? on Thursday.
Well, there's an interesting matchup. Ty, you want to go first on this one?
I think that, first of all, what really concerns me about Georgia is I'm afraid that they may come out flat. Here it is. I think there's going to be changes coming up. There's talk about the Zaire situation. This team needs to focus on Georgia Tech and win this football game. And what they need to do, basically, is to try and do the things that they unsuccessfully did against Auburn, and that is stop the run.
That's right.
They have got to make Donnie Davis pass the ball. If I were Georgia, I would just stick as many men as I could up on the line and take the run away from him and make Davis pass as much as possible. Because if you do that, then you're going to get a passing contest between Eric Zaire and Donnie Davis. And if you're a Georgia fan, you got to like your chances with that. But that's the key thing, is stopping that run.
What do you think?
I think Tech's defense has been a little bit suspect this year, and they're weak against the pass. And of course, Eric Zaire has been the hottest quarterback in the country the last month.
Right.
I look for Georgia to score about 42 points, and I don't know if Tech can score that many. They'll get about 30 or so. The running game is crucial. We need to stop William Bell and Dorsey Levens.
Well, that's just the thing. If Tech comes out there and if they establish a running game, that's going to eat a lot of time off the clock, and then Eric Zaire's not going to have as many chances to get the ball in his hands. I'm telling you, I am really worried. If they come out and if they're flat, there's no doubt in my mind Georgia Tech will hold on to that football for 35 minutes. And another crucial thing are mistakes. Georgia could have been in that Auburn game at the end of the game if it weren't for an interception that was returned for a touchdown, a fumble by Terrell Davis, and another interception that Eric Zaire threw on around the 10-yard line. Well, they were on the 10-yard line. He threw an interception in the end zone. And that's potentially, a 21-point swing. I mean, you can speculate, but that's just the fact. Turnovers killed him that game. In this game, again, I think turnovers and mistakes are going to be critical.
I hate to go back to the old argument of SEC versus ACC football and which one's better, but I think you have to look at the fact that Georgia is playing in the SEC, which is a little bit tougher conference this year than the ACC. And Georgia Tech has won, 3 of their last 4, but they've beaten Wake Forest, Baylor, and Duke.
Right, and at the same time, I'm sorry, Jeff, are you finished?
Well, I was just going to say, to compare Georgia to Duke and Wake Forest, I think you're overlooking a little bit.
I think another situation to look at is Tech's defense, stopping those teams. I mean, they gave up over 400 yards to Baylor. I think they gave up over 500 yards to Duke, despite Duke making several mistakes and turnovers.
Yes.
Georgia has to take advantage of that suspect defense, and I think that defense is suspect.
If they have the opportunity. Bill Lewis need to concentrate on trying to keep that running game going and keeping Zaire off the field.
Oh, no doubt about it.
That's got to be his game plan. If he doesn't do that, he's not doing his job as a coach.
Nope.
Speaking of as a coach, what about the coaching changes at UGA?
Jeff, Jeff is the Georgia connection here. He talks to those influential people. He knows before the paper knows.
No, you're putting all the burden on my shoulders tonight, Tom. From what I hear, I think Ray Goff's job is going to be safe for the next year. There will be some defensive coaching changes. I think they're going to be announced Friday. It sounds like they're going to move very quickly. Maybe look at Joe Lee Dunn from Ole Miss to come over and become the new defensive coordinator. He's the Ole Miss defense is number 2 in the country right now. He's obviously doing a pretty good job. He's a very aggressive, blitzing kind of a guy, and I think he's just what we need over here.
What about some of the other assistants? Because I don't think it's just going to be the coordinator. I think that you may see more than one change.
Well, I've heard possibly Henry Harris coming in as the defensive line coach, and maybe Steve Dennis, the former Auburn assistant, coming over as the secondary coach. A lot's going to depend on whether the new coordinator wants to retain some of these guys on his staff, though.
And still, what about people like Frank Orgel, the
well,
linebacker coach?
I know Frank Orgel is trying to become the new coordinator. He's interviewing for the job now. I don't know whether they'll give it to him or not, and then I don't know if the new guy would retain Frank. I would hope that he does. He's an excellent recruiter, and I think he does a good job with our linebackers.
And I think there's going to be one change on the offense.
I think Willie McClendon is probably going to be moved to a administrative position at the Butts Mayer building.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to do, let's get back on this Auburn thing. Jeff, I mean, we're looking at Auburn. Here it is. This team has just hit rock bottom. There were such big scandals going over there. I mean, they made 60 minutes. And here it is. They get penalized, and after they're penalized, they have an undefeated season. I just don't think the penalties were severe enough.
Well, it may take some time for the penalties to kick in as far as the losses of scholarships, but the no bowl game is not going to hurt them because they're already being talked about as a national champion.
Right.
They're going to be on TV next year. They were not this year. That cost them a little bit of money, but that's not going to hurt their program that much.
What changes do you think the NCAA needs to make, or what restrictions do you think?
I think first of all that the NCAA, I wouldn't do anything if I were them. Who's got to be kicking themselves are those clowns over in Birmingham for the Southeastern Conference. Those idiots over there have again cost this conference millions of dollars. And not only have they done it with this bowl set up, but they have also done it by basically not copying what the Pac-10 did. The Pac-10, what they did was very smart. The conference just stepped in and said, well, we're going to handle this. And the way they handled Washington, what they did is that they let them stay on TV so they could keep bringing money into the conference. Right. And what they just said was that, Washington, you're not going to get any of it. Mm-hmm. And they hit them hard with losses of scholarships. None of this little slapping on the wrist with 3 scholarships for 2 years. I mean, I don't think that's very much at all. I think the SEC should have stepped in. They should have done the same thing. They should have said, Auburn, no, you will stay on TV. You're not going to hurt the other teams here in this conference by keeping them off of TV. The Auburn-Alabama game was going to be a nationally televised game. Right. Ole Miss and Auburn was going to be a nationally televised game Thursday night on ESPN. And you really cheated a whole lot of people doing that. I would have liked for them to say, no, we're going to keep them on TV, and you get no bowl money for 2 years, and you get no TV money for 2 years, and then you take 5 scholarships away from them for 3 years. I think that if they would have done that, that is a severe penalty, and at the same time, your conference is not really penalized for someone doing something wrong.
Do you think that would have stopped them from being at the position they're in now?
Yes, I really think that would have hurt them significantly. I mean, at the beginning of the year, Jeff, you heard about some possible departures over there at Auburn. 2 very significant players who were getting ready to leave.
Yeah, one of them was James Bostic that we had heard a rumor may have transferred to Georgia, but I think they talked him out of it just for the fact that they had a new coach come in there, Terry Bowden, and let's give him a little bit of credit for getting him ready to play this year. But before the viewers decide that we're picking on Auburn a lot, I mean, let's point out that they've been on probation in football 4 times. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're constantly in trouble. So, yeah. And now they've got their basketball and their tennis programs on probation at the same time as their football programs. So.
Well, I don't want to make it sound like I'm picking on them either. I'm just trying to make a point and an issue here that here it is. It's almost a big advertisement that it pays to not obey the rules. And when you got Jackie Sherrill and Danny Ford in this conference, who have that type of reputation also, that really doesn't set a good standard. I don't like that at all.
Okay. I'd like to take this time and remind our callers and viewers that this is a live show, so if you have any questions, then you can just call us at 873-6713. Okay, moving back to coaching. There's some other clubs in here who are going to have some changes, such as Clemson.
Right, I think Clemson is one of them. Even though they're 8-3, I think they're the worst 8-3 team in the country. This is a powerful program that lost to Florida State by 51 points. Let's face it, that is the team you need to compete against to be on the level of Clemson, and you get waxed by 51 points. If I were the athletic director or the president or those big honchos over there at IPTAY that pay just thousands of dollars into that program, I just wouldn't tolerate that. That's not good enough. And I think that they do need to make changes. And Jeff, people that we've been hearing about to take that job, one name had been Bobby Ross, but he seems to go back and forth. He's really wishy-washy in what he wants to do.
And I think it just depends on if the Chargers won that week or not, whether he's ready to leave.
But another name that I'd heard has been Chuck Reedy, who is the Clemson man. He's got the job over at Baylor right now. I don't know if some of those folks over there, that booster club, are going to be too happy with that, but that seems to be one name that's popping up.
Yeah, okay. We have a caller. Thank you for calling, caller. You're on the air.
Yes. Hello, Vanessa, and hello, fellas.
Hello.
Hey.
All have definitely got the Troy Aikman, Bernie Kosar tag team hostesses of community television down pat.
Thanks.
But first, I've got my Ohio State sweatshirt on. Should I
cuts off the sleeves of his Ohio State sweatshirt. Ty, what do you
I
think?
think what he's maybe insinuating is that it gets pretty warm down there in Los Angeles this time of year. Personally, if Ohio State's going to go to the Rose Bowl, Wisconsin is going to have to lose over there in Tokyo to Michigan State. Wisconsin's playing awfully well, and I don't think that's going to happen. They beat up on Illinois pretty well on the road, and Barry Alvarez has that team going. They had over 500 yards, 300 of it on the ground. I look for Wisconsin to win that game.
Well,
So in other words, keep those sleeves on. You might need that sweatshirt.
yeah,
But then on the other hand, you may be on your way down to the Citrus Bowl, so buy a T-shirt.
thanks a lot, you all.
All right,
Thanks
thanks.
for the call. Okay, what about South Carolina and LSU? They're going to have some coaching changes.
Well,
too.
South Carolina, I think Sparky Woods is out. I mean, here it is. He had a rough time of it last year and had a good ending of the season and beat Clemson. That's always important.
Right.
This year he had a bad season and lost to Clemson. And South Carolina, I think the writing is on the wall. Woods is out. And one of the names that might step in there is another person that seems to, I don't know, one day he looks like he's a good candidate, and the next day it sounds like he doesn't want to coach, and that's Dick Sheridan, Jeff.
I think he's a good candidate for sure, and I don't think they're going to do any better than that. I hope they're going to offer him the job.
I think it'd be a good move for South Carolina. I think that's a good choice. Yeah. As for LSU, there was talk of Barry Switzer coming in there. Well, LSU beat Alabama at Tuscaloosa. That holds a lot of weight for those crazy Cajuns over there in Baton Rouge.
I got a feeling Curley's going to hang around for
Yeah,
another
I
year.
think he's going to hang on also. And then they got, didn't they beat Ole Miss at home?
Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah, they beat Ole Miss at home. And then if they beat Arkansas this week,
They're going to a bowl.
They get their bowl, and they'll be down in Miami for that Sunshine thing.
Okay.
So I think Curley will hold on.
I think so too. Okay, we have a caller. Thank you for calling, caller. You're in the air.
Yes, I would like to ask you how you feel about Georgia Tech basketball's team this year, and do you think there's any pressure on Bobby Crumb as far as coming through for us this year because of going up to South Carolina and turning down that job? And I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to do real well this year. And I just like to know how you feel about Georgia Tech basketball team this year.
Okay, thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Vanessa, you're close to these people over there. Let's see. I think they're going to be very successful. I think this is a good team. I think that this is a top 10 team, to be honest with you.
Most definitely.
I like the idea of them playing Barry at the point, get Travis Best off the point, get him at a shooting guard where I think he's much more effective. I don't think he likes fooling around with being a point guard at all, even though he may say that.
Right.
When I see him play, he's a lot better at that off-guard position.
I think they need to put Drew Barry over there. He handles the ball real well.
He does, and this team also has that big old horse, Forrest, in the middle, who can just do so many good things for you. I think he is a great power forward in the college basketball game. I think a question is going to be center. Hey, everyone always has projects and questions, and it's one of those things that if they get some production and a lot of improvement out of someone who can come up and play that center position, they're going to be successful and win a lot of big conference games. And I also like the other fella, Moore, right, who can, again, put up points for you. They have a whole lot of weapons.
He's young and he's good, too.
And I think they have a little
very effective
depth.
this year.
One of the things where Crimmins is always criticized is not having enough players. I think he's got a few more players this year. Instead of playing 5, I think he's going to almost double that and play 8 this year.
Yeah, but you don't, just because he's got 8 doesn't mean he's going to play him. He never has before, though.
I think you'll have to. I think with the way the game is changing, the shot clock going down, there's going to be a lot more running up and down the floor. Just when I looked at the box score there with Minnesota and Georgia, you just saw about 10 players on each team with double digits in minutes played. It's no secret that a lot of teams are going that format like Arkansas and Kentucky where they just run you to death up and down the floor and you need a whole lot of players. A lot of teams in the ACC do that too, especially North Carolina with that. Where Dean really likes to trap you once you get in the corner and really likes to push you up and down the floor. He's going to need to play those guys.
Well,
I thought the caller had a pretty good point about there being maybe a little bit extra pressure on Crimmins to produce maybe a Final Four team this year, just to prove to the Tech people that he wants to be here, not in South Carolina.
I agree with that because you're going to hear a lot. If he loses a big game or gets ousted in the first round of the tournament, the fans are going to be sitting there saying, geez, why didn't you go to South Carolina?
right.
go to Columbia. Delta's ready when you are. Or in that case, maybe he just needs a bus, Greyhound.
Whether it's deserved or not, there is an impression out there or an opinion of some fans that he's probably taken the program as far as he can take it. And I know they had a couple of good coaches apply for that job after he left this year. So,
Vanessa, what do you think? You think he's taking that program about as far as he can?
Well, we'll have to see, starting with this Friday against Michigan, how the team faces
that's a big
up.
ball game. Do they have? They had some injured ball players.
Right. Last night they won the game by 20 points and they didn't have Travis, James, or Martise playing. I guess he just wanted to hold them off until Friday when you really going to need them.
Probably not a bad idea.
I could be wrong, but I think he has plateaued. I think that Final Four team with those great players that he had is as far as he'll ever make it. I thought that he had an awesome team around 1985 where
Price and Sally and Joseph and
all those guys.
I mean,
I think Hammonds was on that team, and they just didn't make it, although they ran into a good Georgetown team. Still, if you're going to be competitive in the Final Four, you have to beat teams like that.
Right, exactly. Okay, let's move on to the NFL. The Cowboys are back. No.
Well, no,
Cowboys left town with their
That's
tails
right.
between their
the
legs.
49ers are though, right?
Those 49ers club, well, I picked this team to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. And when I saw the Falcons run on, I'm sitting there thinking, good grief, I mean, what a stupid pick. This team has got a weak defensive line, and Pierce Holt leaving that team apparently has really hurt them. But then you always have to rely on good coaching, and George Seifert is smart enough to where he can make changes and adjustments and to find out ways to neutralize these weaknesses. I really liked one of the things he did last night. You get about a 28-point lead in the first half, the other team has to pass, and then you don't have to worry about run defense. I think he just said, well, what I'm going to have to do is score and score quick and early and a lot on a lot of people, and that'll take care of that problem. And they have the quarterback and the skill players to do it.
Well, they've been scoring a whole bunch of points the last 3 weeks. I think they've been over 43 weeks in a row. They're hitting on all 8 cylinders, and they're going to win the NFC West. I know the paper today said something about the Falcons making the playoffs. That's sort of a joke to me. I don't think that's going to happen.
It's a long shot.
That is a very long shot. This San Francisco team, Jeff, I think right now one other team is in their class. Don't let this Dallas game with the Falcons fool you. That team, I think, is going to be in the could easily be in the Super Bowl. It's going to be them or San Francisco. And I think that those are the two best teams right now. I think if either one of those goes, a team like Buffalo, I don't think can stand up to them. I think one of those two teams is your champion.
Yes, I agree. What about Atlanta against Cleveland Browns this weekend?
Well, believe it or not, the Falcons are actually playing a significant game now, just simply because they're playing Cleveland, who's in a tight race in the AFC Central. Houston and Pittsburgh, I believe, are tied at 6-4, and Cleveland's not far behind, although they just don't have much firepower. I mean, 2 weeks ago they only scored 5 points against Seattle. I think the Falcons are going to win this game. I think they're basically going to try and do the same thing to Cleveland, what they did to Dallas, and I think they're playing with a little more confidence. I think Cleveland will come in and get beat.
Well, I think Cleveland's obviously having some quarterback problems. They waived Bernie Kosar, and they've got a guy named Phil Cox in there who threw 4 interceptions last week. I don't know if he's the answer to their situation. On the other hand, the Falcons are a very up-and-down team. I mean, we're looking at they should have beaten Tampa Bay after they beat the Rams, and they could possibly come in here Sunday and just throw another dud like they did against Tampa Bay.
That's true. I mean, you just almost have to flip a coin. I'll agree with that. The one constant I know is Cleveland's offense, I think, is bad, and they're going to have to be able to run the football, plain and simple. Now, if they're able to run the football against the Falcons, then they've got a good chance of winning. We'll just have to see.
They do have Metcalf, and he's a pretty exciting player. He can hurt you anyway. Kickoff returns, punt returns, any kind of thing. So.
Yeah.
Right, speaking of the punt returns, what do you think about them letting Tony Smith run the ball back more than Deion?
I don't think you can argue with it, the fact that he's second or third in the league in punt returns. So.
We were at that Monday night game against Pittsburgh, and he had a kick return for a touchdown there. Tony Smith is pretty good. I mean, I don't think he's as good as Deion. But
I think it saves a little wear and tear on Deion, not making him return punts. You can let him play defense and then stick him in at wide receiver every now and then.
Yeah.
So.
But I've seen a couple of games where he's got caught from the back where Deion would have made it.
Well, I don't think there's too many people in the NFL that can catch Deion from the back. I agree with that. It's just a question of what you want. I mean, you really feel that you've cheated yourself if Deion's back there and someone just hits him early or levels him on a punt return and you lose him for a while. Then you're sitting there kicking yourself, why did I do that? And Smith has done well, and so I think the coaches and Bobby April like what they see, and why not? I would do the same thing. I agree with that move.
It is. I mean, it is a valid question, but you can't argue with Smith being second in the league. So I mean,
True. I guess if the Falcons get in a situation where they're down by 6 or something like that, they'll let Deion run it back.
Maybe when
Most
you need a
definitely.
big play, a cheap
Yeah.
score, because Deion can always get them.
you know, he'll be over there talking. He'll be nudging Jerry on the sideline and saying, "Give me the ball, coach." So.
What about the Buffalo game this weekend against Kansas City?
Yeah, Kansas City as a team I think can be had. It just depends if Joe Montana's in or out, and they're so up and down. I think that Buffalo is in a tight race with Miami in the East, and all these games are crucial and significant because they want to keep the home field for the playoffs. I think Buffalo is going to win this game.
I agree with you. Kansas City is just way too inconsistent. In Montana, what's he going to put in a quarter or two before he leaves this time, or what?
I guess so. They did not play well against the Bears.
And Buffalo and Miami are kind of tight. What about Miami and Dallas?
Great game on Thanksgiving. I think Dallas is mad. They're going to win. Plain and simple. I think Jimmy Johnson may have even actually tried to use this Falcon game to prove a point.
I think they were overlooking the Falcons.
Maybe.
Looking at Miami.
Maybe. But I think they'll have Aikman back. And,
Miami's got quarterback problems. Their quarterback, their second stringer, Mitchell's injured now.
you know, something that game showed me is that Troy Aikman, I think, means a lot more to that team than Emmitt Smith does. I mean, Smith is good, but Derek Lassick is not that bad of a running back. I think he could fill in for him just fine. He just needs a little more time and experience in the NFL. Aikman, he's irreplaceable. He's the man.
Okay. Emmitt Smith is not.
Emmett's almost the man. He's not as big as a man as Aikman is.
He's a pretty good ball player.
Okay, pretty good. I agree with that. Okay, let's touch a little bit on the NBA. Do you think the Hawks are improving?
Well, I think so. I think the areas that you have to look at is their field goal percentage and their opponent's field goal percentage. And the Hawks have constantly been getting outshot. I mean, even with their win against Charlotte Saturday night, which was a good win, Hawks shot 40% and Charlotte shot 45%. Another one of the keys is that at the beginning of the year, they were getting out-rebounded by an average of 10. Wilkins has made some changes, obviously, and now they're not getting out-rebounded as badly. And another thing is free throw shooting. They have to be able to make the free throws. They have to be able to take advantage of any time that they can score because their field goal percentage is just so lousy.
Well, I mentioned last week that obviously with a new coach bringing a new system in, it was going to take them a few games to adjust to that. I think you may have seen, they've won 4 straight, that they're getting used to Lenny Wilkins' system. Dominique's scoring 25 points a game like he ought to be, and they may actually make the playoffs.
Maybe. I think that this team will be very happy to be around 500.
The playoffs, that's one thing that's up for grabs, definitely, right now.
Let's get a quick prediction. Who do y'all think are going to be the type of teams that are going to compete here for the NBA title?
I look at Miami Heat.
I think Seattle Supersonics.
I like Seattle in the West. I think that's an excellent choice, and they've got several players that can go out and beat you. I like the acquisition of Shrimp a whole lot. And on the East, I like Pat Riley and the Knicks. I think that's going to be the final.
We'll see. Okay, I'd like to thank you guys and thank our callers and viewers. We'll see you next Tuesday, same time, Channel 12.